Alright, so here is the valve body. Basically, once you get it out of the vehicle, this one's pretty clean. I sprayed it. It's rated down with a lot of carb cleaner. And once you get it out, place it down on this side, just like this, facing down. Basically the reverse side of the way that it was in the truck. It's not going to be down like this. This is going to be the easiest way to do it. Especially when you take these Torx head bolts out and you start to actually separate everything after the next couple steps. Not right now, but after the next couple steps, you'll be able to separate it. And the check balls, there's a bunch of little balls that are inside there, are going to be situated in a convenient fashion. This way, if you had it took it apart from the top up and pulled it apart, then check balls would just roll everywhere and it would be a nightmare. That's one of the reasons why I suggest when you actually get to this step that you perform it in like a little basin that has a dip around it. I use like a lid for plastic holding mechanism. Just like a storage bin. I use the top of that because it had a metal rim around it. This way, if the balls went everywhere, or check balls, they would be contained. Okay. So, in any case, at this point, you're going to have to remove a couple things. You're going to have to remove, like this connector here, this connector right here. Take that off. You can remove this, or you can wait to remove that. If I were you, I'd just wait to remove that. This plate that comes across there. Also, one of the first things that you're going to disconnect here. This is actually the reverse side of it, the opposite side. This is the side that actually meets into the transmission. And this little piece right here, this is where that little mumbly peg is going to come into play, and that's on the installation side of the equation. This ball is spring-loaded and under tension, and as you can imagine, when you're going to have to pull this crow foot off, okay? This is where the shift lever connects to. You can recognize the orange piece of plastic on the side here. And here is your actual valve that's going to be replaced with a new one. The mumbly peg is going to hold the tension on, hold this ball in there, hold it back in the spring, so you can install the crow's foot back on, and that's part of the reinstallation steps. Now, at this point, this is just a shot from the top. This is the connector that was actually coming out on the top of the transmission with the connector going inward. Okay, that had to be disconnected as well before performing the installation, which is one of the things I went in on the first video. I covered that. It's all made out of plastic, so hopefully you didn't break it off when you yanked it out. Okay, it's got two seals there to keep the transmission fluid in there. This is also what sticks out through the top. When you're reinstalling this thing, you need to make sure to lubricate all the parts, both the internal pieces and the outside part with transmission fluid. Put transmission fluid on these seals here before you reinstall that back into the transmission at the other end of the equation once we get all this modified. Okay. Now, to actually separate the valve body, the valve body is basically three separate pieces. So it's 1, 2, 3, an outer, a middle plate, and then an inner plate that goes on top. Okay, three separate pieces of flat aluminum that have been machined and bolted together with those torque bolts that make the valve body itself. The reason why it's separate pieces is because they had to cut a tremendous amount of grooves in them, all these grooves right there, and that's why they had to go ahead and make them three separate pieces. Okay. So before you can separate the valve body into its three separate pieces, and before you should go ahead and remove the Torx bolts from the sandwiched valve body, what you should go ahead and do is remove some other outer pieces. One outer piece here is going to be, there was actually a cage going around this whole assembly. That cage has to be removed. The cage is secured by one bolt on the side, another bolt on the other side, and yet another one. Mid cage has to be removed. Another item that has to be removed before the valve body can be unsandwiched is this tube right here. This tube is held on by a piece of plate. There's 3 tabs. These tabs were actually bent and folded over this pipe to keep the pipe from coming out this way. So what I had to do is grab the little flaps, bend them back, all 3 of them, okay? And then once you've got them all bent back, you're going to be able to pry this out with like a flathead screwdriver gently, a little bit at a time, each side, evenly, and then boom, this whole little pipe is going to come out. Alright, and you take that pipe out, set it aside, you'll be able to have access to these Torx bolts here that are holding the valve body together, and that's the end of this particular segment.